Plato begins his philosophy with a deep concern about truth and knowledge. He believed that most people live their lives surrounded by opinions rather than true understanding. People see the world around them, form beliefs based on appearances, and assume they understand reality. Yet according to him, appearances can often be misleading. What we see with our eyes or hear from others may only reveal a small part of what is actually real. Because of this, the search for truth must go beyond surface impressions and move toward deeper understanding. This search for truth was inspired by the influence of his teacher Socrates, who spent his life questioning assumptions and challenging people to think more carefully about what they believe. Socrates believed that wisdom begins when a person realizes how little they truly know. Following this example, the young thinker became deeply interested in examining ideas about justice, knowledge, morality, and the nature of reality itself. One of the central questions he explored was how human beings can know anything with certainty. In everyday life, people rely on their senses. They see objects, hear sounds, and feel physical sensations. These experiences help them navigate the world, but they are not always reliable. A stick placed in water appears bent even though it is straight. Distant objects appear small even when they are large. Because the senses can deceive us, he believed that true knowledge must come from something more stable than perception alone. He argued that the world we experience through our senses is constantly changing. Objects grow, decay, and transform over time. A beautiful flower eventually fades. A young person grows older. Cities rise and fall. Everything in the physical world exists in a state of change. Because of this constant change, the physical world cannot provide perfect or permanent truth. From this observation, he developed one of the most famous ideas in philosophy, the theory of forms. According to this idea, the objects we see around us are only imperfect reflections of deeper and more perfect realities. These perfect realities are called forms. They are not physical objects that exist in space, but eternal and unchanging patterns that give structure to the world. For example, many different things in the world can be described as beautiful. A painting, a landscape, or a person might all be called beautiful. Yet each of these examples expresses beauty in a slightly different way. The theory of forms suggests that behind all these examples there exists a perfect form of beauty itself. This perfect form does not change and does not depend on any particular object. It represents the true essence of beauty. The same idea applies to many other concepts. There's a form of justice, a form of goodness, and a form of equality. These forms represent the perfect versions of these ideas. The things we experience in the physical world are only imperfect attempts to imitate or reflect these deeper realities. According to this view, knowledge is not simply learning about the physical world. It is the process of gradually understanding these deeper forms. The human mind has the ability to recognize them through careful thinking and philosophical reflection. While the senses provide information about the world, true understanding comes from the intellect. This idea led him to an important conclusion about education. Education should not simply involve memorizing information or learning practical skills. Its true purpose is to guide the mind toward knowledge of what is real and eternal. A properly educated person learns to question appearances, think logically, and search for deeper truths. One of the most famous illustrations of this idea appears in the allegory of the cave. In this story, he describes a group of people who have lived their entire lives inside a dark cave. They are chained so that they can only face a wall in front of them. Behind them, a fire burns, and between the fire and the prisoner's objects are moved back and forth. The prisoners cannot see the objects themselves. They can only see the shadows cast on the wall. Because the prisoners have never seen anything else, they believe these shadows are the only reality that exists. The shadows form their entire understanding of the world. They give names to the shapes they see and build their beliefs around them. Now, imagine that one prisoner is suddenly freed. At first, the light from the fire hurts his eyes, and he struggles to understand what he is seeing. Gradually, he realizes that the shadows were not real objects, but only reflections of things behind him. If he eventually leaves the cave and sees the outside world, he discovers an even greater reality filled with sunlight, color, and living things. This story represents the journey of the human mind from ignorance to knowledge. The shadows symbolize the opinions and appearances that most people accept without questioning. The outside world represents the deeper truths that philosophers seek to understand. Learning and philosophical thinking allow a person to move beyond the shadows and see reality more clearly. Another important part of his philosophy concerns justice and the structure of society. He believed that understanding justice requires first understanding the nature of the human soul. According to his view, the soul has three different parts. One part seeks knowledge and truth. Another part seeks honor, courage, and recognition. The third part seeks physical pleasures such as food, comfort, and material enjoyment. These parts of the soul must remain in balance for a person to live well. When the part that seeks wisdom guides the others, a person becomes rational and thoughtful. When courage supports wisdom, a person develops strength of character. When desires are controlled rather than allowed to dominate, a person can live a balanced and harmonious life. He believed that society reflects the same structure as the soul. Just as individuals have different strengths and abilities, societies contain different groups of people who perform different roles. Some individuals are naturally inclined toward learning and wisdom. Others excel in courage and defense. Others contribute through practical work and production. A just society, in this view, is one where each group performs its proper role while working together in harmony. Those who possess the greatest wisdom and understanding should guide the community, not for personal power, but for the benefit of everyone. These individuals would become philosopher rulers, leaders who understand truth and seek the good of the whole society. Through these ideas, he created a philosophy that connects knowledge, morality, education, and politics into a single vision. Human life begins in a state of confusion and limited understanding, much like the prisoners in the cave. Through learning and reflection, the mind gradually rises toward deeper knowledge of reality and goodness. The purpose of philosophy, in this vision, is not simply intellectual curiosity. It is a path toward understanding the true nature of the world, guiding the soul toward wisdom, and building societies that reflect justice and harmony. As the exploration of these ideas continues, a deeper understanding of a human soul becomes central to the entire philosophical system. The belief that the soul has three parts is not simply a psychological observation, but a way of explaining human behavior and moral struggle. Every person experiences moments where reason, emotion, and desire seem to pull in different directions. One part of the mind may understand what is wise and beneficial, while another part seeks excitement, recognition, or pleasure. The challenge of a good life lies in bringing these forces into harmony. The part of the soul connected with reason is the highest element. It seeks knowledge, understanding, and truth. This part is capable of thinking beyond immediate desires and considering what is truly good for a person in the long run. When reason guides the soul, decisions become thoughtful and balanced. A person learns to examine situations carefully rather than reacting impulsively. The second part of the soul is often described as the spirited element. This part is connected with courage, determination, and the desire for honor. It gives people the strength to defend what they believe is right and the motivation to pursue meaningful goals. Without this spirited energy, reason alone would remain passive and ineffective. Courage and determination allow the insights of reason to be carried into action. The third part of the soul is connected with desire. This element seeks physical pleasures and material comforts such as food, wealth, and enjoyment. These desires are natural and necessary for survival, but they can become destructive if they are allowed to dominate the other parts of the soul. When desire becomes too powerful, individuals may pursue short-term pleasure at the cost of wisdom and long-term happiness. A healthy and just life requires balance among these parts. Reason should guide decisions, the spirited element should support reason with courage and determination, and desire should remain under control rather than directing behavior. When these parts function in harmony, the soul becomes stable and well-ordered. When they fall into conflict, confusion and unhappiness often follow. This idea about the structure of the soul forms the foundation for understanding justice in society. Just as the soul has three parts with different functions, society also contains different groups with distinct roles. Some individuals are naturally inclined toward learning and reflection. Others possess strength and bravery that allow them to protect and defend the community. Still others contribute through productive work such as farming, craftsmanship, and trade. A just society, according to this vision, is one where each group performs the role that best matches its abilities. Those who possess the greatest wisdom and understanding should guide the community. Those with courage and strength should protect it. Those skilled in production and labor should provide the goods and services necessary for daily life. Justice arises when each part of society performs its role while respecting the contributions of the others. This idea does not mean that individuals are permanently fixed into rigid categories. Education plays an essential role in discovering the abilities of each person. Through careful teaching and observation, society can identify those who possess the intellectual capacity and moral character needed for leadership. These individuals should be trained extensively in philosophy and reasoning so that they can govern wisely. Education, in this philosophy, is far more than the transfer of information. Its true purpose is the development of the soul. A proper education gradually guides the mind away from confusion and toward understanding. Students learn to question appearances, examine arguments, and search for deeper truths rather than accepting ideas blindly. The process of education also requires patience and discipline. Just as the prisoner in the cave struggles to adjust to the light of the outside world, the human mind often resists difficult truths. It is easier to remain comfortable with familiar beliefs than to confront challenging ideas. Yet genuine learning requires the courage to leave behind comfortable illusions in order to discover reality. Mathematics and logical reasoning play an important role in this educational journey. These subjects train the mind to think clearly and recognize patterns that exist beyond the changing world of physical objects. By studying abstract relationships, the mind becomes better prepared to grasp deeper philosophical truths. As education continues, the most capable students eventually begin studying philosophy itself. Philosophy encourages them to ask fundamental questions about reality, knowledge, and morality. Through careful discussion and reasoning, they learn to distinguish between opinion and genuine understanding. This process gradually leads the mind closer to knowledge of the forms. Among all the forms, one holds the highest place. This is the form of the good. The form of the good represents the ultimate source of truth, meaning, and value in the universe. Just as sunlight allows the eyes to see objects clearly, the form of the good allows the mind to understand reality. Without it, knowledge would remain incomplete and scattered. Understanding the good gives meaning to everything else. Justice, beauty, knowledge, and virtue all derive their value from their connection to this highest principle. A person who understands the good can recognize what truly benefits human life and what leads to harm or confusion. Because of this, those who achieve the deepest understanding of the good are the ones best suited to guide society. Their knowledge allows them to make decisions not based on personal ambition or temporary desires, but on what truly benefits the community. This is the origin of the idea of philosopher rulers. The idea of philosopher rulers is often misunderstood as a desire for intellectual elites to hold power. In reality, the idea is based on responsibility rather than privilege. Leadership should belong to those who understand what is good and just, and who are willing to place the well-being of the community above their own interests. Such individuals would not seek power for personal gain, but accept it as a duty. At the same time, The philosophy recognizes that power can easily corrupt those who lack wisdom. When leaders pursue wealth, fame, or personal pleasure instead of justice, societies often fall into disorder. Laws may become unfair, and conflicts between groups may grow stronger. The stability of a community depends on leaders who are guided by knowledge and virtue rather than ambition. Through these reflections, the philosophy connects the inner life of the individual with the structure of society. A well-ordered soul creates a balanced and thoughtful individual. A well-ordered society creates harmony among its members. In both cases, the guiding principle is the same. Reason and wisdom must direct the forces of desire and ambition so that life can move toward what is truly good. As these ideas develop further, the question of knowledge becomes even more important. One of the central concerns is the difference between opinion and true understanding. Most people live surrounded by opinions that they accept from tradition, culture, or the influence of others. These opinions may seem convincing, but they often rest on unstable foundations. True knowledge requires something more reliable than belief or appearance. It requires understanding the deeper realities that exist beyond the changing world. To explain this difference more clearly, a distinction is made between the visible world and the world that can be understood only through the mind. The visible world is the one experienced through the senses. It contains physical objects, living creatures, and all the changing events of daily life. Everything in this world grows, changes, and eventually disappears. Because of this constant change, knowledge based only on the senses can never be completely certain. In contrast to the visible world, there exists a deeper level of reality that remains stable and unchanging. This is the realm of forms. These forms represent the perfect and eternal patterns behind everything that exists in the physical world. While the objects around us are temporary and imperfect, the forms remain constant and complete. For example, in the physical world, people encounter many different examples of justice. Laws attempt to create fairness. Individuals try to behave honorably, and societies build systems to protect rights. Yet these examples are often flawed or incomplete. The idea of perfect justice itself cannot be seen with the eyes, but it can be understood through careful reasoning. This perfect concept of justice exists as a form, and the examples found in everyday life are only attempts to reflect it. This understanding changes the purpose of philosophy. Philosophy becomes the effort to move beyond appearances and reach knowledge of these deeper realities. It is a journey from confusion toward clarity, from unstable opinions toward lasting truth. The mind gradually learns to recognize patterns that remain the same even while the world of physical objects continues to change. To describe this process of learning, an image is often used that compares the development of knowledge to climbing upward through different levels of understanding. At the lowest level, people rely entirely on images and appearances. They see shadows, reflections, and impressions without realizing how limited these perceptions are. Many individuals remain at this level throughout their lives, accepting what they see without questioning its deeper meaning. The next level involves belief about physical objects. At this stage, people recognize that the world contains real things rather than only shadows or illusions. They observe nature, learn practical skills, and gain useful knowledge about everyday life. This level of understanding is more reliable than simple appearances, yet it still depends heavily on the senses. Beyond this stage, the mind begins to explore abstract reasoning. Mathematics plays an important role here because it trains the mind to think about relationships that do not depend on physical objects. Numbers, geometric shapes, and logical patterns exist independently of the material world. By studying these ideas, the mind becomes accustomed to thinking about truths that are stable and universal. The highest level of understanding is reached through philosophical reasoning. At this stage, the mind examines the deepest principles that give meaning to everything else. Instead of focusing on particular examples, it seeks to understand the forms themselves. Questions about justice, beauty, truth, and goodness becomes central. The goal is to discover the ultimate sources of meaning that lie behind the visible world. Among all these forms, the most important is the form of the good. The good represents the highest principle in the entire structure of reality. Just as the sun provides light that allows people to see objects clearly, the good provides the intellectual light that allows the mind to understand truth. Without the good, knowledge would remain scattered and incomplete. Understanding the good allows a person to see how all other forms are connected. Justice becomes meaningful because it reflects the good. Beauty becomes valuable because it reveals something of the good. Knowledge itself becomes worthwhile because it leads the soul closer to this highest reality. In this way, the good serves as the ultimate source of meaning and order. This vision of knowledge also transforms the role of philosophers in society. Those who dedicate their lives to seeking truth develop a deeper understanding of reality than most people possess. Their minds become trained to recognize the difference between appearance and truth, between temporary pleasure and genuine good. Because of this understanding, they are better prepared to guide society wisely. However, the life of philosophy is not always easy. Seeking truth requires questioning common beliefs and facing uncomfortable realities. Many people prefer the security of familiar opinions rather than the uncertainty that comes with deeper questioning. A person who tries to guide others toward truth may encounter resistance or misunderstanding. This difficulty is illustrated through the story of the prisoner who returns to the cave after seeing the outside world. When the prisoner tries to explain the truth about reality, the others may not believe him. They have spent their entire lives accepting the shadows as real, and the new explanation seems strange and confusing. In some cases, they may even react with hostility toward the person who challenges their beliefs. This story reflects the challenges faced by those who attempt to bring wisdom into public life. Knowledge alone is not always welcomed. Yet the responsibility of those who understand the truth is to continue guiding others patiently, even when the process is difficult. Through this perspective, the relationship between philosophy and society becomes clear. Philosophy is not meant to remain isolated in abstract thought. Its purpose is to help individuals and communities understand reality more clearly and make better decisions. By seeking knowledge of the forms, and especially the good, the human mind gains the ability to distinguish between what merely appears beneficial and what truly leads to justice and harmony. In this way, the philosophical journey becomes both an intellectual and moral transformation. As the mind moves closer to understanding the deeper structure of reality, the soul also becomes more balanced and virtuous. Wisdom guides actions, reason governs desire, and life gradually aligns with the pursuit of what is truly good. As the philosophical vision reaches its final stage, the ideas about knowledge, the soul, and society come together into a single understanding of how human life should be lived. The central belief is that the purpose of life is not simply to pursue pleasure, wealth, or power, but to seek wisdom and align the soul with what is truly good. When people live without reflection, they often chase temporary desires that bring brief satisfaction, but leave the deeper parts of the soul restless and unfulfilled. A thoughtful life, guided by reason and understanding, offers a more lasting form of fulfillment. The search for wisdom is not only an intellectual activity, but also a moral transformation. As the mind becomes clearer about the nature of reality, the soul gradually becomes more balanced. Reason begins to guide decisions. Courage supports what reason discovers, and desires fall into their proper place rather than dominating behavior. This harmony within the soul creates inner stability and peace. A person who lives in this way becomes less controlled by impulses and more capable of acting thoughtfully and justly. This inner harmony is closely connected to the idea of virtue. Virtue is not simply a set of rules about what actions are allowed or forbidden. Instead, it is a state of balance within the soul where each part performs its proper role. When reason guides life, a person develops wisdom. When courage supports what reason understands, a person develops strength of character. When desires are kept in balance, a person develops moderation and self-control. Together, these qualities create justice within the individual. The idea of justice within the soul mirrors the idea of justice within society. Just as the different parts of the soul must work together in harmony, the different groups within a community must also cooperate. When individuals pursue only their own interests without regard for the common good, conflict and disorder appear. But when each group performs its role with a sense of responsibility toward the whole community, society becomes stable and balanced. Leadership plays an important role in maintaining this balance. Those who guide society should possess wisdom, discipline, and a genuine commitment to the well-being of others. Leadership should not be based on wealth, popularity, or ambition alone. Instead, it should belong to individuals who have developed the intellectual and moral qualities necessary to understand what truly benefits the community. This idea is closely connected to the concept of philosopher rulers. The purpose of such leaders is not to gain power for personal advantage, but to serve the community through knowledge and wisdom. Because they understand the deeper structure of reality and the nature of the good, they are able to make decisions that promote justice and long-term stability rather than short-term gain. The education required to develop such leaders is demanding and gradual. It begins with training the mind to think clearly through mathematics, reasoning, and disciplined study. As the mind grows stronger, students begin exploring deeper philosophical questions about truth, justice, and the nature of reality. Over time, those who demonstrate both intellectual ability and moral character continue to advance in their studies. This long process ensures that leadership is given to those who truly understand the responsibilities it carries. Knowledge without virtue can become dangerous, just as power without wisdom can lead to corruption. By combining intellectual training with moral development, education prepares individuals to guide society responsibly. Another important element of this philosophy is the belief that the pursuit of knowledge should continue throughout life. Wisdom is not something that can be fully achieved and then forgotten. The world remains complex, and the human mind must remain active and curious in order to understand it more deeply. A life devoted to learning allows individuals to refine their understanding and strengthen their character over time. Philosophy, therefore, becomes more than a field of study. It becomes a way of living. A philosophical life involves questioning assumptions, examining beliefs, and seeking truth with patience and humility. It requires the courage to challenge comfortable illusions and the discipline to follow reason wherever it leads. Through this approach, the individual gradually moves further away from the world of shadows and closer to the world of understanding. The journey may be difficult, but it leads to a deeper awareness of reality and a stronger sense of purpose. Instead of being guided by impulse or social pressure, the individual becomes guided by knowledge and reason. This transformation also strengthens the connection between personal life and social responsibility. When individuals develop wisdom and self-control, they become better members of their communities. Their decisions are more thoughtful, their actions more just, and their influence more constructive. In this way, the pursuit of philosophical understanding contributes not only to personal fulfillment, but also to the well-being of society. The overall vision that emerges is one in which knowledge, virtue, and justice are deeply connected. The search for truth leads to a clearer understanding of what is good. Understanding the good allows individuals to shape their lives around virtue and balance. When many individuals live in this way, societies become more harmonious and stable. At the heart of this philosophy lies a hopeful belief about human potential. Even though people may begin their lives surrounded by confusion and illusion, they possess the ability to learn, reflect, and grow. Through education, careful reasoning, and the guidance of wisdom, the human mind can gradually move toward a deeper understanding of reality. In the end, the message of this philosophy is both intellectual and practical. Human beings should not remain satisfied with appearances or shallow opinions. They should seek knowledge, cultivate virtue, and strive to understand the deeper principles that guide life. By doing so, they bring harmony to their own souls and contribute to the creation of a more just and balanced society. The journey toward wisdom may begin in darkness, like the prisoners in the cave, but through reflection and learning, the mind slowly turns toward the light of truth. And in that light, the meaning of justice, goodness, and human life itself becomes clearer.